Alright guys, hey, today we're going to be taking a look at the absolutely massive HGUC Dendrobium kit here. But if you haven't seen the unboxing video, you can check that out. I also did a series of live builds building this up, so you guys can check out those videos as well if you're interested. But today we're going to be doing the review, and it was very important for me to be able to start out this review by showing you the kit here in my hands compared to me, just to give you guys a sense of how big this kit is and how heavy it is. I'll give you guys a look there on screen of how heavy this kit comes in at with the base included, because the base is also quite big and chunky. This big thing doesn't really weigh a whole lot, but it's quite large anyway. But yeah, the kit itself quite heavy and quite big, as you can see just by the overall size and length of this. I really hope that you guys do enjoy the video, just because I know that this kit doesn't have a whole lot of coverage on YouTube, just because, you know, it's a kit that, you know, not a whole lot of people have, let alone have all built up. And I will hopefully be working on this some more. I had a really cool idea of how I might want to actually paint this kit up. So that is something that I would like to work on, and hopefully we'll be able to. But for now, you guys can see just how big this kit is and how it's going to be quite difficult to review just because of the size. But I'm going to do my best. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so and because of the weight of this guy, I'm sure it exceeds the weight limit of my rotating base, so I'm not going to be able to rotate this around, and just because of the space, there's just not enough space to have this thing spinning around here in my room. But let me give you the measurements here for this. It's coming in at about 34 centimeters in height, 46 centimeters in width, and it looks like about 98 centimeters in length, almost a meter, just under a meter in length. Now, I knew this thing was going to be long, but I honestly was surprised at how wide the containers are as well. And so I want to take the review in sections. We'll start off by taking a look at the Dendrobium unit itself. Then we'll kind of briefly take a look at the GP03, just because that's a kind of standalone kit on its own that I'm sure you could probably find other reviews of quite easily, and it's a kind of an older HG. We'll take a look at it though briefly and kind of talk about some of its accessories and things like that as well. Then we'll wrap up the review by taking a look at how the Gundam looks and works once it is installed inside the Dendrobium unit. But let's go ahead and get started here with this big guy. And I want to take a quick look here at the base here to start us off. Now, on that note, when not on the base, there's not really any good way to set this thing down. I've just had to set it down upside down, because you can't really lay it down like right side up, because then it's on top of those fins, and I feel like those fins are gonna break. And standing it up, you can kind of stand it up, but then it's gonna like fall over. But anyway, so here is the base. It's just 3 parts, your main base plate piece, and the 2 halves here for the main structure. And there's no metal or screws or anything involved with this, so it's pretty simple. A lot of really nice detail in and around here, but you will have a big nasty seam line down the front and back of that. So you may want to go in, like, get rid of the seam line, then maybe also add some detail pieces or something to that, just to kind of help cover some of the just big empty blank space there. And then I was actually pretty shocked to see there's actually no way that the base actually locks into the bottom of the unit. The unit itself just really just kind of rests on top of the base, which seems a bit dangerous. I mean, it rests on there solid enough, and because the thing is so heavy, I don't think it's gonna fall over or anything. It seems well balanced on there, but I mean, it is not really super tightly locked onto that, so you may want to add a few rods or something like that, just as a little added security in case you have it on display somewhere in your house or something, somebody bumps it. They're gonna give it a little bit of a wobble, probably not gonna fall off the base, but you know, just in case. But as for the unit here, let's go ahead and start off just taking a look at the back end of this, just because it doesn't have any moving parts or anything. I was gonna pick it up to try to show you guys, but I think we'll just have to just move the camera around as we're talking about it. I think that'll be easier, because the thing is just way too heavy and difficult to hold up. But if you take a look back up inside here, you've got your 6 main large thruster bells, which are quite big, and a lot of really nice detail up inside, up and around those. For these long parts coming out the back, these middle ones, kind of, you got the top ones which are shorter, and then the middle and the bottom ones which are a bit longer. The middle ones are 2 halves that are just sandwiched together, so you've got a seam line going all around the side of that. No seam line though on the top parts. On the bottom parts, you kind of have this seam that kind of goes diagonally down here, and now you could consider that a seam line, or you could leave it as a detail line. I think the design of that is made in a way so that it doesn't really look bad, like it's a seam line. I think you could just leave it like that, or you could close that up if you wanted this to look more seamless and just as one single piece there. But inside this big section here at the back is basically where your 3 metal plates are. One that goes in the center, kind of right in the middle of there, in the middle of everything. And the other 2 longer metal pieces are what kind of go down the side of the kind of main section there. And there's a number of spots putting this kit together where you use the screws, which there are a lot, and most of them went pretty well. There's only a couple areas that I had any trouble with the screws. But if you're planning on building this and then you're hoping to disassemble it for painting, one issue that you're going to have is that some of the screws are then covered up by a plastic piece, which is going to be really difficult to get out. Like right here, for example, you can see that little section right there. That's a little extra piece that you put in to cover up where there's a couple of screws inside there. That piece is going to be very, very difficult to get out. So these are the kind of things that you're going to have to keep in mind if you're planning on painting the kit. And if you want to build it up fully ahead of time, you may want to end up just, leaving some of those screws out, because I think you could probably get by with snap building it, leaving a couple of those screws out, and the kit's probably going to stay together just fine. Either that, or you'll have to maybe make some modifications, or just maybe omit some of these plastic pieces that cover up where the screws go, just to make your life a little bit easier when you go to disassemble the kit. Right, let's go ahead and move on to the eye field generator next. So here's what this looks like. This top part is just a single piece, so no seam line there, but the bottom section has a seam that'll go all the way up and around to there. Fortunately though, that's on the bottom, so it's going to be much less visible. And then you have a lot of really nice mechanical detail kind of in between the white sections of the armor there, which look really cool. For the front side, in order to change that piece on the front, the fan piece, you can just pop this section off, which is fairly simple to do. And your 2 options for that is actually just 2 pieces that you put together, making a front and a back. So if you wanted this more detailed side, you just flip that around and just pop this back on there like that, and there you go, it looks like that. Personally, I prefer the fan side, and I'll go ahead and switch that back here a little bit later. This just plugs back onto the unit in this section right here. You just pop it on and then slide it back, and it's locked into place right there. And it's the same way that the cannon connects on the other side. You press it on and then slide it, and it locks it in. Now, I just want to leave this off for a second so that we can talk about here the sub arms underneath. These parts also have a seam line, which is going to be hard to see because it's underneath, but there's a seam line going around this section right here. But this will all fold out and kind of slides out, and you kind of have to work this a little bit to get this completely unfolded out of there. Once you get this all folded out, you can see the mechanical arm for that is pretty cool, and you can also rotate this left and the right. I think you need to move that part up and out of the way a little bit. You can rotate this left and right. You also have another point of articulation here, right there for that part, and then this mouth opens up, and that's where your giant beam effect will come out of there. And again, these beam saber effect parts are the perfect grade ones meant for a 160 scale Gundam, so the beam effect itself is 23 centimeters in length, which is taller than your usual like master grade 100 scale model kit. So once those are in there, it's going to look like that. I take that back. You can actually use that to pull out the handle, and the handle is actually held here in the jaws. So those close in like that to hold the beam saber handle like that. Sorry, that's how that's supposed to go, because there are little holes here in the beam saber handle where that tabs into kind of the jaws of the subarm there, and also a seam line on the handle of this section as well. But anyway, guys, that's probably the most complex moving part of the kit, I guess, probably aside from like the inner part of the containers maybe, but just the way that this folds up in here, I find it to be a little bit tricky to get everything kind of like lined up so that you get it folded in there properly. There we go. Once you get that all folded up, it folds up in there, and it all looks pretty seamless there, which looks really nice. I'll go ahead and put this back on here as well. All right, now as I was saying, the cannon on the other side also just locks into place. It doesn't move at all, even though in the anime, it seems like, as I remember, this whole cannon, the GP03 is actually able to move the whole cannon itself. It's not like locked into a static position. In this case, it's just locked into a position, but let me just go ahead and take the barrel out here. So the barrel actually plugs in and then twists to lock into place, so you can just turn that and then pull it out, and it just slides out very easily. This is made up of a tip piece, which is a single piece, and then 2 sections. One section here of 2 halves sandwiched together, and then another section of 2 halves sandwiched together, so you will have a long seam line going down the majority of the length of the barrel. Measured out, that comes to about 34 centimeters of seam on each side of this that you're gonna have to glue and sand. Not too terrible, it fits together, you know, pretty much just fine, but that is gonna take some work. The handle section of this does then fold out for the GP03 to hold. This is another kind of moving mechanical piece that kind of pulls out here like this. Probably a little bit difficult to see. Let me try to show you guys from a different angle, but this works pretty well, that there's like kind of two parts that kind of work in unison for this to slide out and give you the handle there for the GP03 to hold on to there for that. So a cool effect if you plan on using that, if you plan on having the GP03 hold on to that. One other moving part here that I almost forgot about in the Canon is that this camera here on the top folds out. Now, how you're meant to be able to do that seems a bit of a mystery to me. It's kind of difficult. Okay, so I actually need to take this piece off in order to get this up. I think I assembled it wrong, and that this was supposed to be sticking up when you put this piece on, so that you can put that on there like that. And so that's what the camera looks like folded up. And then when you go to fold it down, it doesn't actually go all the way down. It still stays like that, so that it's like kind of sticking up a bit. So then later, like when you want to pull it up again, you're actually able to do that, because I was not able to get that camera back up from how I had it before, even though it's still kind of difficult. I feel like it would be possible, at least easier than it was when it was inside there. But then going ahead and moving up to the containers, one of the larger sections of the kit here. So in order to open the doors, you won't be able to just open them exactly right like that. They get stuck on this part, so you actually need to lift this part up. That kind of goes into the upper locked position like that. Then you can open up the main doors, the two like that. And now not every section of this is functional. Some of these are just dummies where it's just nothing but just a single piece there and there's nothing really behind it. But the ones that do pop out are spring loaded. So you can push these in and it's supposed to then pop it out so that you can more easily grab it. And there is a little lock. So you see that little section here, that little like tab, you can actually slide that and that will lock it so that they aren't popping in and out. The lock is kind of hard to do, and you don't really need to use that, but you can use it if you want. But the spring on there should pop this out just fine. Here's one of the sections here. There, as you can see on this missile pod, you're gonna have a seam line on the sides of this. So I mean, that's just one thing. I'm pointing out all the seams to you just to kind of emphasize, just for anybody who is interested in actually painting the kit. I mean, you are going to have a lot of seam line work ahead of you with a kit like this. That's all if you plan on painting the kit. If you're not planning on painting the kit, you know, then it's not so much to worry about. But here is one of the sections where this is actually weapon storage for the GP03. So like this one, for example, is for the beam rifle. So the beam rifle will fit into place inside here. Once you have that in place right in there, you can then just slide that in for your storage of the beam rifle. We have another section right here, if I can get it. Sometimes the springs on this, I will be honest, like it's supposed to pop in and pop out. It works pretty well, but sometimes they're a little bit sticky and it's kind of difficult to get them to pop out properly as they're supposed to. But once you get that popped out, this is the section where your folded bazooka is supposed to go. Now, unfortunately for my bazooka, it seems that I've misplaced the part that connects the front and back half of the bazooka that will allow it to fold. But that is going to be a pretty easy part to just maybe scratch build a new piece just to put in there to make this so that it can attach. But yeah, your bazooka folds in half, and then when it's folded in half, it's meant to be able to store in this section right here. But I mean, you can get the gist of it anyway, just with the back half in there. That just slots right into place like that. Other container here is going to be, this one I think is like it's like the triple large missile, I believe it was. We were talking about this during the stream. I'm not exactly sure what these are. I think it's 3 giant missiles, but I could be wrong. But these, of course, also have seam lines, so there's 3 in this set, and then there's another one of these in the other side, so it's actually 6 of these with all the seam lines involved with that. So basically each side is going to have 2 weapons pods and then 2 storage pods. On this side, one of these is for the new bazooka that we have. So we have an additional bazooka or rocket launcher type weapon here. This one is not included with the just GP03 on its own as an HG kit. This one doesn't fold. It's just a single, well, 2 pieces sandwiched together and then additional piece right there at the front. This one can be stored right inside there like that, right? Yeah, okay, there you go. That slides into place there. And our last storage container here, as soon as I can get this one out, there we go. This one is going to be for the folded shield. Now the shield is supposed to have some blue sections, it's just all white there, but there's the backside detail of that. this just folds in half like so, fits into place there like that, and stashes away. Our other containers here on this side is going to be the other triple large missile there, as I mentioned before, and this one, which is going to be the other one of these. So those are your options for the pods in here in the large containers. Other than that, no other real moving parts or anything to speak of for the Dendrobium unit. Let's go ahead then and take a brief look here at the GP03 itself. So the main model kit, nothing's changed from just the standard release of the GP03 on its own. The only thing is that it has the additional bazooka, which I just mentioned about, and it does not have the core fighter. So you don't have that if you wanted to have the core fighter as well. That's not included with this kit. The stickers are going to be for the head camera up there, front and back of the head. Got a sticker there for the eyes. That's the eyes and that red section underneath the eyes. That's all one sticker. A sticker for this green camera bit right there in the chest, the red bit right there in the crotch, and then down here above the ankles, green stickers right there as well. For the hands, you actually have some decent options here for those, just because you have the option of open expressive hands like this for both sides, the left and the right. And then you've got two different set of holding hands, which are just kind of okay looking. They're nothing really to write home about, but these ones for your beam saber, so they've got like a round hole in them. And then for your other handheld weapons, which would be the beam saber and the bazookas, you've got these ones that have a kind of square hole in the hands for holding those type weapons. As far as weapons, I mentioned you already saw the two bazookas. You don't have stickers for any of the cameras or anything on any of the weapons, but there's just a look around the details of that. Obviously, you're going to have some seam lines on these, no surprise there. The beam rifle as well. The secondary handle does move side to side. The camera does also move. On the bazooka that you guys just saw, the camera does move on that a little bit as well, but again, no stickers or anything. It's just kind of two pieces sandwiched together, and then the handle and the camera are just additional pieces there. And of course, the classic HG toothpick or the beam saber, which has no actual clear pink beam saber effect part, so you definitely are going to have to paint that. Or what you could do is just cut that off and then just use a beam effect part from a different kit. You'll just have to drill a hole in there to be able to make that fit. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that right now. So I'm gonna cut this off, leaving a little bit of space left on there for us to clean that up nicely. Then you can either just poke a hole or just kind of mark a little bit there in the section to mark your center point for your drill, just to make sure that your drill goes in nice and centered. And then just go ahead and drill a hole. I'm starting off with 1 millimeter, and I think we're gonna have to go up to 1.5 millimeter. But we'll just do 1 first, and then if it doesn't fit, we can go up. There you go. Yep, 1.5 millimeter was right. And there we go. Now we have a much better looking beam saber, and that only took like literally 1 minute of modification. Yeah, so the Gundam itself, the articulation is not going to be anything too great. It is going to have quite a bit of seam lines around in every area where you would expect, like here on the side of the shoulders. It actually doesn't have any on the rest of the arms just because of the gimmick, and we'll come back to that here in just a second. But a little bit of a seam there on the top of the torso, around here on the back, seam lines here on these backpack parts right up there. And then going down here to the leg on the thigh, you actually have a pentaline detail on both the front and back and left and right side of the thigh, so there won't be any visible seam there. But on the lower leg, you'll have the seam going all the way through the bottom of the leg and the back side as well. So the front and back of the lower leg, the seam all the way down through the middle of that, and then through the middle of the ankle armor there as well. So a few difficult ones there, nothing really too bad. Then you also have this big pentaline detail going around the head, and that's to hide the seam line on the head, which I kind of would have rather preferred it to not have. I'm not sure if the original design has that, but so you don't necessarily have a seam line there, but you have this big fat pentaline detail running around the sides of the head. But it is pretty nicely designed, and you have the little antennas. You of course have safety flags on both the regular V-fin and the smaller antennas there. The articulation of the head will go up to about there, which is not too far up for a Gundam that's meant to be lying down in the Dendrobium. It's not actually going to be able to look up that much, unfortunately. Look down to about there. In the stomach section, of course, we don't have any kind of ab crunch. You just have a little bit of rotation there left and right at the waist. The shoulder will also not come forward and back at all. You can just rotate the arm up to about 90 degrees. That's about it for the upward movement of the arm. We've got some rotation there in the bicep, and then a joint in the elbow, which is going to give you more than 90 degrees, but that's about the extent of your elbow joint articulation. Now, yes, you do have the gimmick here, how the arm unfolds once you open this up. the kind of sub arm, as it were, pulls out of the arm like that. And of course that's used for when it's in the Dendrobium to be able to grab onto its weapon, so that claw kind of bit opens up like that. It's a really cool gimmick. I'm not sure how well that's really going to work kind of in practice with the kit, but it's cool that they were actually able to recreate that for a kit, especially considering the age of this kit. Going down here to the skirt armor, the front skirts are joined together, but you can clip those apart for individual articulation if you prefer. It's got these bits of side skirt right here that move up and down. You can rotate those. And then the main back skirt, which is just right up inside there, that also does move a little bit. It's kind of butt flap up in there. And then these kind of larger side skirt, back skirt type parts here like this, the little fin on top can move. And otherwise these are just attached via a ball joint. Mostly it's just going to be up and down movement here of these to kind of adjust the angle of how you want those to go. The hips are just a simple ball and socket joint, so you can get those out to the side to about that far, which is a pretty good range of movement to the side. Up to the front though, you can really only bring it up to about there, which is not even 90 degrees. At the knee you can get, yeah, not even 90 degrees there at the knee either. That's about the extent of that. Here at the ankles, this front ankle armor will rotate up and down a little bit. The ankle itself will move up, down to about there, side to side a little bit, and then up underneath the feet. Full detail there, no empty spaces or anything like that, so that's nice for that detail up underneath there. And then background here to the backpack real quick. The two parts here on the side are joined together in the middle, so those will move in unison. You can kind of adjust the angle of this whole backpack unit front and back a little bit. And the little mouths on the top here do open up, and that's where your beam saber handles are, but those are just dummy ones because our beam saber handle is just the single one that we have here. We actually don't even have two of those, just the one, even though there are two beam saber handles, one in the left side and one in the right side. But again, those are just shorter dummy ones that are just meant to be up in there just for the look. All right, so let's go ahead and dock these guys together. First of all, you just kind of have to fold up the Gundam like that, like he's laying down. This part folds down, these parts fold up. The Gundam just kind of slots into place there, and the manual shows you kind of exactly how it's supposed to look, so you can kind of compare and make sure it looks right. Let's see if I can get this in here. There we go. And just like how the Dendrobium unit doesn't like lock into place in the base, there's not really anything to really lock the Gundam into place in there either. It's just kind of resting in there, and if you have it in the right position, I guess it's just supposed to look right. But yeah, there's not really anything that's really holding it in there, which is good if you are planning on using this with a different Gundam. Like if you wanted to just, you know, make a kit bash or a custom in some way and you wanted to put a different Gundam in there, at least it's not like very made specifically to only fit the GP03. I feel like you could probably throw like any Gundam in there as long as it's kind of the general size and shape of a typical like 1/44 scale Gundam. Pretty much anything will fit into there. But anyway, guys, there you have it. I'll try out a couple of poses, I guess, as much as you can pose this. I mean, there's a few moving parts. The containers, you can open those up. You can have the Gundam holding on to kind of the handle, and not really even exactly holding on. You just kind of use the open hand, just kind of make it look like he's holding on to the handle there for the cannon. You can use the sub arms underneath. So there's kind of poses, I guess, sort of, that you can do with this. It's essentially a brick kit. I think anybody picking up this kit, I mean, you can pretty much know what you're getting yourself into ahead of time, that you pretty much know it's going to be basically a brick. I mean, there's not really going to be anything too much that you can do with this, as it is just a massive mobile armor unit essentially. But hey, I mean, my overall thoughts on the kit, this is one of the largest kits that Bandai makes, so there's certainly a really cool novelty to this, just in the fact that it's so unique and that it's so huge. The biggest problem, I think, aside from just the cost of it, because it's very expensive, is just going to be having the space to display it. It's one thing I talked about, I think, in the unboxing video. It's just one of those kits that you've got to have the space to display it, and it's a very large kit, very long kit, one that I think would probably fit like up on like the top of your shelf, or like on a coffee table, or maybe if you have like a display like below like where your TV is or something like that. I don't know, I could see definitely some places for it, but I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're wanting to get this kit. Now, if you're just planning on just snap building the kit and not fully painting it, what I would recommend is maybe just go in with a panel line marker, just bring out some of the details, because there is a lot of white there, but there's a fair amount of detail around on the kit. I mean, remember, at the end of the day, it is still an HG kit, so don't expect anything like too crazy in terms of the complexity of this. There's a fair amount of surface detail on there, and just bringing that out with a little bit of Gundam marker, just go around, Gundam marker out those details, maybe spray a little top coat on it, and it's going to be looking pretty good as is. I would say if you could also go in and like paint in some of the details as well, because there's a lot of sections where it should be like at least kind of gray mechanical detail or something like that, maybe a little like silver or metallic, something like that. If you have just a little bit of paint in some of the details, that would also help. But if you are planning on fully painting the kit, you are definitely going to have your work cut out for you. As I've been mentioning kind of the whole time, there's a bunch of very large seam lines on this kit. The fit is pretty good though, I think so. I mean, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some work, going to take a whole lot of elbow grease to get rid of those seam lines, but I feel like you're probably not going to need to do anything too crazy, like using a bunch of putty and things like that, like you might have to use for like an older 80s kit or something like that. So I mean, obviously just with a kit of this size, there is going to be a ton of work required if you are planning on fully painting the kit, but again, it's kind of one of those things that you probably know that going into it ahead of time. You know, this is not a simple little HG kit that you could paint up like over the course of a weekend. I think this is one of those that you kind of know that you're getting yourself into, you know, a pretty long journey with a kit like this, but I think it's going to ultimately be worth it, just because at the end of the day, again, a lot of the reason to get this kit is not going to be because it's like the best kit or it's got really fantastic details, fantastic articulation, anything like that. It's just the novelty of it. It's just big, awesome looking. That's gonna do it for the review here today, guys. If you have any further questions, do feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. Try to be as thorough as I can with this, just because like I said, I know there's not a whole lot of coverage of this on YouTube just because of the nature of the kit. I hope this was interesting, entertaining for you guys. If you are interested in the kit, if you're able to find one for a decent price, I mean, I would say get it if you're interested in it, if you think that it looks cool, if you think it looks like something that would be fun for you. But I hope that you guys found this review helpful in making that decision, whether this is something that you do actually want to try to track down and buy and build for yourself or not. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think about this kit? I don't know if this is scheduled to be reprinted by Bandai anytime soon. I know it hasn't been for a while, so it's probably not that easy to find at the moment. But of course, if you guys are just in the market for Gunpla in general, you can of course check out USA Gundam Store for tools, paints, and supplies and everything else you guys might need as well. So the link to USA Gundam Store will be down in the video description below. As always, if you guys would like to like and or subscribe while you're here, that's also greatly appreciated. I really appreciate you guys checking out the video here today. Until next time, hope y'all have a great day. I'll see y'all then. Bye-bye.